Have you ever imagined a man building a cement empire without a single dollar from the West? No foreign investors, no international loans, just pure grit, vision, and soil from the heart of Africa. This is the story of a man who didn't just dream. He dug his dreams deep into the ground, shaped them with his bare hands, and built an empire one brick at a time. This is the story of Aoré Traoré and the world he built. While much of the world sees Africa through the lens of poverty, corruption, and dependency, Aoré Traoré saw something else: power in its people, wealth in its soil, and pride in its identity. In a small country called Burkina Faso, a boy was born with nothing: no money, no connections, no privilege, only a burning belief in himself. Aoré didn't just create a cement company, he sparked a revolution, a movement built in Africa, for Africa, without a single thread of foreign control. In this documentary, we dive deep into how Traoré turned a humble vision into an industrial giant, how he faced obstacles that would crush most, and yet stood tall, shocking the entire world. A small village, mud huts, no electricity, no paved roads. This was Traoré's world when he first opened his eyes. His parents were farmers, surviving season to season. Some days, there was only one meal for the whole family. But in the midst of poverty and hardship, something in the young boy's heart refused to die his dream. While other kids played with sticks, Traoré sculpted houses from clay. His eyes would shine as he whispered to his little sister, "One day, I'll build real houses. Many of them. For our people." His mother would tell him, "Dreams aren't just for sleep, my son. They're for living wide awake." But the path to dreams is filled with darkness. Traoré had no books, no mentors, no real schooling. The village school was miles away, with no roads to reach it. Yet, he never gave up. He watched, he listened, he learned, he studied the land. He observed how bricks were laid and how buildings rose from dirt. His dream wasn't just to build with bricks, he wanted to make the cement itself. But to everyone around him, that was madness. A poor boy, making cement? They laughed at him, they dismissed him. But Traoré understood one thing clearly: if you don't believe in your own dream, no one else will. And so begins a story not just of one man, but of a continent awakening. A story of turning struggle into strength, earth into industry, and ideas into impact. This is the story of Aoré, the man who shocked the world. Traoré's dream of building a cement empire didn't begin in an office or a classroom. It began in dust, sweat, and hunger. His first job was hauling sand for a local construction supplier. Day after day, under the scorching sun, he lifted heavy bags of gravel and sand, loading them onto trucks and delivering them to villages. His hands would blister, his feet would bleed, but his eyes never lost that spark. He noticed something critical. People were building more and more homes, but all the cement was imported. Expensive, slow, controlled. And that's when the lightning struck. Why can't we make our own cement? He started asking questions, making friends with local masons, and watching every step of construction. He had no formal education, but every day became his classroom. While others partied at night, he stayed up mixing lime and soil in his backyard, writing notes, failing, experimenting. Some days he collected special volcanic ash from deep forest areas. Other days he tested clay from dry riverbanks. His early samples crumbled. Some didn't set. Others hardened too quickly. But he didn't stop. When he took his idea to the bank for a loan, they laughed in his face. A village boy making cement? The bank manager closed the file and said, "Your idea will never work. You'll lose everything." People whispered behind his back, calling him delusional. But Traoré had learned something essential: you don't need permission to dream. You need courage to build. He found an abandoned warehouse on rent, a rusted, forgotten place on the edge of the village. There, with a repaired old grinder gifted by a kind mechanic, he set up a small test plant. He hired the same idle village boys who used to spend their days gambling or drinking on the roadside. Now, they were grinding limestone, mixing clay, and testing strength levels of homemade cement. The first batch failed. The second, also a mess. But the sixth batch, it passed his strength test. It was solid, It cured well, and most importantly, it was 100% local. He produced 100 bags and distributed them for free to local builders for feedback. The response was electric. It's just like imported cement, but half the cost. That was his first victory, the first real moment when his dream touched reality. Word spread fast. Local contractors started buying small batches. The warehouse, once silent and broken, now echoed with machines, shovels, and excited voices. And above its entrance, Traoré painted 4 bold words: Aoré Cement for Africa, from Africa. From that moment forward, there was no turning back. Either he would change the world, or be crushed trying. Traoré chose to change it. Success, even in its smallest form, never goes unnoticed. As Aoré's cement bags started spreading across towns, so did whispers. The young man from a dusty village, the same one who hauled gravel not long ago, was now running a functioning cement plant. But the road ahead wasn't paved with celebration. It was full of enemies, betrayal, and breaking points. With growing sales, Traoré made his first major hire, an old accountant from the city who promised to help him scale. But within months, the man emptied the company's savings and disappeared. Aoré was devastated. His workers hadn't been paid in 2 weeks, raw materials were stuck at the quarry, and angry creditors came knocking on the factory gates. There were nights he slept on the cold cement floor of his warehouse, wondering if it was time to give up. His old friends, the same ones who had once mocked him, now told him softly, "Maybe this dream is too big, brother." But Traoré wasn't built to quit. He picked himself up and personally went to every vendor, begged for credit, and promised repayment. His voice cracked, but his spirit did not. One elderly quarry owner agreed to extend him raw materials on credit, not because of business, but because he saw fire in the boy's eyes. But financial loss wasn't the only threat. Large cement distributors from foreign-owned companies began to notice a dent in their regional sales. "Who is this Traoré?" they asked. And then began the pressure. Big trucks with imported cement started parking right outside his warehouse, slashing prices in half, trying to choke him out. Flyers were spread saying, "Don't trust local cement, it's weak." Fake complaints were filed against him. One day, the police arrived with a notice: operating without proper industrial clearance. It was sabotage, pure and strategic. But Traoré faced it head-on. He took his documents, went to the regional industrial office, and demanded an audience. When he was told to wait weeks for a meeting, he waited outside the office building for 3 straight days, until a junior officer finally listened to his case. It turned out, all he needed was one certification, something no one had ever guided him through. Within weeks, his operation was officially registered and licensed. Legally untouchable, but the attacks didn't stop. His machines were tampered with. One night, unknown men broke into the warehouse and stole hundreds of bags. His workers were threatened. He sat with them under the same tin roof where they used to eat lunch and said, "They can steal our bags, but not our will. If we stop now, they win." And nobody left. Then came the harshest blow: a Western cement brand offered to buy him out. A clean offer, millions of dollars upfront, full ownership handed over, and a cushy executive position for Traoré abroad. The offer was more money than he had seen in his lifetime. But he looked at the paper, smiled, and said, "My land is not for sale. My people are not for sale." That moment became a legend. The boy from Burkina Faso, who could have cashed out, chose his country instead. These were the struggle years, the kind of years that break ordinary men. But Traoré was never ordinary. Every attack, every setback, every sleepless night became another brick in the foundation of something unstoppable. He didn't just survive the storm. He learned to build in the rain. When you don't have access to international labs, expensive consultants, or foreign technologies, what do? Most give up. But Aoré Traoré did the opposite. He turned his disadvantage into an opportunity. He decided to build differently, not like the West, not like the corporations, but like Africa, using what Africa had. He went back to the earth. Literally, he spent weeks traveling across Burkina Faso collecting samples of clay, limestone, ash, and crushed rock from different regions. Every piece of land had a story, a texture, a possibility. He met with old village brickmakers, traditional potters, and even tribal elders who had been mixing soil for generations. Where a chemist saw dirt, Aoré saw chemistry. He began cataloging everything. This soil sets faster in rain. This ash strengthens with lime. This region's limestone is more stable. He didn't have fancy tools, but he had curiosity, and that became his greatest weapon. Slowly, he assembled a local team, young engineers who had been ignored by the city companies, but were brilliant in their thinking. Together, in that same dusty warehouse, they built small-scale testing rigs, hand-mixed batches, manual compression tests, hours of watching how cement cured in heat, in rain, in shadow. One of his team members, Awa, once said, "We weren't just making cement. We were reclaiming knowledge that had been